Hello and Happy New Year. Welcome along to episode 48 of Adventures in Pop. And my name is Simon Jacobs. And if you have not watched this before, then you're incredibly welcome. If you have watched this before, you are incredibly welcome. Today we're going to be talking about the release of a new album. It's a new year, a new album. And is a new album anything more than just bunging together some songs that you've recently released and chucking them out again? Well, I would say yes, and I'm going to go into it in a bit more detail. The decisions, the plethora of decisions that lie behind the release of an album, and this will be the fourth time I've done this, so time to get it right, I think. So thank you. First of all, listen, what's with the beardy thing and the glasses? A bit of self-disclosure. Well, we don't need to worry about days because, who knows when you're going to watch this. But about 5 days ago, I tested positive for COVID. I'm guessing it was the Omicron variant. And the reason I'm guessing that is because, I live in London and everyone in London has seemingly recently had or knows 100 people who have had the Omicron variant. And the other thing is it wasn't very bad. 3 jabs, very good idea, by the way, to get vaccinated. So I've had 3 jabs. Then I got COVID, a bit irritating. I didn't feel very well for about a day and a half, and now I'm feeling lots better. But I haven't quite got round to, putting my contact lenses in and shaving and just being generally a little bit more presentable. So apologies for that. What I want to talk about, though, much more exciting than boring old COVID, is to talk about the thought processes, the kind of decisions that I realised, that I go through in order to release an album. I think at the beginning, I just thought, well, I collect together a bunch of songs, and then I rather randomly sort of land on a title and chuck them out. And why would there be any more than that? And I guess as I've gone along, I've realised that there's quite a lot involved. And if you're going to do it really well, there's a whole bunch of decisions you've got to make about the album, about its presentation, about what's in it and what's not in it, and all that kind of thing. So let's unpack this a little bit. Okay, so I've mentioned before that I'm reaching that very exciting point where I am ready to release what will be my 4th album, and it will be called Me and My Big Mouth. This is already out there. I've discussed it a couple of times, but not in detail of why is it called Me and My Big Mouth? Why now? Which tracks? How many tracks? Because the point is, if you're an independent artist without a record company, you can do whatever you like. I mean, and that is a strength and a weakness. You can do whatever you like, and obviously you've got nobody to discuss it with, really. You just sit there, kind of bouncing some ideas, off the wall, trying to work out, is this the right way to do it? What are the pros and cons? What have I learned from doing things recently? As I say, this is the 4th time of releasing an album, so hopefully, we each time I should be getting cleverer at working out what to do and what not to do. So here are the kind of things that I kind of was grappling with in the making of this album. Well, first of all, let's talk about the title, Me and My Big Mouth. Where on earth has that come from, and why? The first track that I put out that was obviously going to be for for this album. So in other words, I'd finished with the first 3 albums and then there's a little gap. Then new single comes along. On that first single, which was I Think I Love You, there is a line in the song Me and My Big Mouth, and it comes up a few times. Um, I particularly liked this line because one of the things I think I'm quite attracted to in songwriting lyrics is uh, phrases that people use, colloquially. It's the kind of thing you just hear people saying, "Oh, me and my big mouth," there I go again, me and my big mouth, and I really like that. And any possibility of kind of getting those sorts of interesting turns of phrases into song lyrics, I think is quite good fun. At the same time, um, I also thought, me and my big mouth, yeah, for somebody who is quite happy to come and talk to you on these video casts, to ramble on, um, and to keep creating track after track of music and keep putting them out and doing crazy videos and keep putting them out. Um, I guess shyness is not really an option, is it? I mean, if I was very shy, I don't think I would be doing this, would I? No, look, I don't think I'm the most extrovert and sort of ridiculously confident person in the world, but clearly, um, I quite enjoy expressing myself. So look, me and my big mouth is quite fitting. It's also a bit, I hope, self-effacing. I hope it suggests somebody that doesn't take all of their own pronouncements too wildly seriously, because that would be a very dull place. So look, there it all is, wrapped up in me and my big mouth. Great. But it doesn't stop there. Having worked out that that would be quite a fitting title, I was then thinking, okay, so how does this look if I'm going to release a bunch of singles? One of the things that I feel quite strongly about actually is that the look of them, and we're not talking about anything physical. All of this is digital. It's all online. It's all virtual, but it still requires an artistic expression, if you like, of the theme you've come up with. Because I obviously I was aware that I would do what I've done before, which is to release lots of singles as I get towards the release of the album, so that people have got an opportunity to kind of get to know the music, get to know what I sort of sound like. So all of the covers of all of these singles, to me, need to look like they come from the same place, that they're part of a family, like a collection. Previously, I did 12 colours. Now, in a way, that was very simple, and I just opted for 12, squares of just a colour. Very simple, one colour in a square, and I call it 12 colours, 12 different colours. Brilliant, brilliant. This though needed something a bit different and a bit more intricate, I suppose. Now, Timothy is the man who does all of my art stuff. Thank you, Timothy, and has a very good kind of art brain. So what I do now is I kind of give him a brief and say, look, this is what I'm going to need. And this was quite a difficult brief. So I was saying to him, I want to call my album Me and My Big Mouth. There are going to be a whole bunch of singles. How do you find a way of expressing Me and My Big Mouth so that it can be done maybe 8, 9, 10, maybe even 12 different ways, depending on how many singles I release, that are obviously kind of plumbing the same point, the same expression, the same joke, if you like, on the way to that album. And then, of course, there has to be the album cover that needs to be some kind of summary, if you like, of all the singles that have got there. So you can see this becomes quite complicated. And he came back to me and said, animals with their mouths open. I said, you what? And he said, no, animals with. I said, show me what you mean. And he came back to me with the first few of these potential single covers, and I said, I really love that. That's really good. It's really good. Are you sure though that you can do that 10 times and then find a way of doing an album cover that's also Me and My Big Mouth? And maybe Me and My Big Mouth on the album cover has to be actually me, not all these animals, if you see what I mean. So you can see how obscure, how strange the conversations get when actually, if you wind back a little bit, I'm supposed to just be doing music and stuff. And now I'm having these conversations about, you know, an art concept in some detail over a number of months about what this is going to look like. How does the concept get delivered? So really interesting. And obviously, you know, he assured me that yes, he could do this 10 times. We had a little conversation about, you know, what kind of range of animals we might be going for, and then I just left it to him. And then when he got to the album cover, I started worrying about it again, thinking, oh dear, you know, what's this going to look like? How do we do this then? How does this work? And he said, he said, send me a photograph of yourself yawning. So I did actually. I did a couple of selfies of me yawning. They were a bit odd, as you can imagine. And he said, don't like those. Do them on a plain background. So look, a few days later, I was over at my mum's. My niece Lily was there, so I gave her my phone and I said, take some photos of me yawning on this white background here. Oh, and he wants them side on a bit, you know, a bit. So I did a few of those. Well, actually, Lily was great. What she did was dozens of them, most of which I sent on to Timothy. He found one and then recreated it in the same style, the same technique as all of those other animals. And there we have it. Thank you, Lily. Thank you, Timothy. So that's brilliant. Good. Job done. No, not quite. So listen, here's the next thing. How many songs go on an album? Particularly in this, you know, in the digital age when we're streaming, we don't have to stop halfway through and turn the stream over, do we? And yet, here's the thing that's so interesting. You know, we're still making albums in the style of vinyl, really. It all comes from vinyl, where, you know, we sort of felt that there was about 20, 25 minutes on one side, and another 20, 25 on the other. And that's kind of where we landed, isn't it? So we tend to think of an album being, I don't know, maybe a little less than an hour, and maybe 9, 10, 12, possibly 15 songs. I don't know. I mean, it does definitely vary. Go and have a look at the last album you streamed or downloaded, and there'll be varying lengths. So look, I've kind of stuck at the same for each album, and I can't see a reason necessarily to change it. I think there's something quite neat about 12 songs. So once again, for this fourth album, there will be 12 songs. And 12 songs tends to clock in around 50 minutes, something like that. And I think that's about right. This is incredibly subjective. There are no rules on this at all. It's just that here we are in the digital space, still, you know, plumbing a format that was developed 60, 70 years ago and was for a completely different, for a physical thing that no longer exists, or no longer, it does exist, I shouldn't say that, but is no longer driving, if you like, the way that we, you know, express ourselves on an album. And yet it absolutely does. It has so much influence. And there's just something nice about 50 minutes of music. I just think that's about right. I tend to get a bit irritated even if my very, very favourite artist has put out, an album with 17, 18 tracks. I sort of think, couldn't somebody have edited this a little bit? If it's going to go over an hour, if it's going to go over 15 tracks, it's got to be pretty bloody amazing. So I'm very happy to stick at 12 tracks. It feels very kind of manageable. I think 12 tracks is also digestible, and I don't want to put stuff out there that nobody's going to have the stomach to get to the end of. I mean, what on earth's the point of that? It's hard enough getting people to listen anyway. So 12 tracks feels right, 50 minutes perfect. So I guess I'm going to just carry on in that way until somebody comes along and says, duh. And it feels good. Okay, then you get into the thing about which tracks. Well, for me that's not so difficult because I will have released most of them by the time I get to the album. But there were still a couple of tracks to put on. I released 10. Still 2 tracks spare. A bit of decision making about which 2 to choose. There really are a lot, sitting around in the track bank. Not all of them totally respectable, but many of them. So then it's a question of trying to find 2 that sort of fit in with the groove of the album, and one of them maybe is the one that's going to finish the album. But then you get into another thing, which is, okay, so I've released them in a certain order. Now with 12 colours, I put the album together exactly in the same order that I had released those 12 songs. Quite nice doing that. So I was aware as I was going along to get the singles in the right order so that when the album comes out, I just keep them in the same order. I'm going to do it slightly differently, I think, for Me and My Big Mouth. So for Me and My Big Mouth, I'm going to go back through the whole lot of them again and think, okay, if I was just starting from scratch, what order would I put these in? And I think I still want to put I Think I Love You first because it has the line of Me and My Big Mouth in it. And there's an unreleased track, one of the new ones, called Complicated, which feels very much like an album closer. So that will be the last. And then, so the other 10, I'm changing the order somewhat. And it's totally subjective. And again, let's think about this. We know that in the world of digital streaming and all the rest of it, people don't really sit down and listen to an album from top to bottom. They pick and mix a few tracks. And so I know that even if I put them in an order, they're going to be always taken out of context. And I don't mind. I'm not so kind of purist that I'm going to get offended by that, really. Be daft, wouldn't it? And then a couple of other things to think about is, do I just use the exact mix that was put out as a single, or do I remix it? Do I play with it a lot, or just touch up with, again, going back to 12 Colours, there were about, I think if I remember rightly, there were 3 songs that I just tried to improve between putting them out as a single and getting them on the album. and I did that because I thought in retrospect that they needed improving. I'm sure that some roughly the same is probably going to apply here with Me and My Big Mouth. But on the whole, I think I want to resist changing them. I want to resist, upgrading everything, because I think you can just do that forever. I do sort of believe that you can always improve everything, and you can keep on doing that forever and ever and ever, and it gets in the way actually of just getting on with stuff, getting on to the next thing. So I will try not to do that. I'll try not to be like Kanye, who puts stuff out and is already changing it to put out a better version, a better. I would say to Kanye, look, wait another couple of weeks and just spend a bit more time with it, and then put it out, and then draw a line, move on. You've got other stuff to do. He doesn't listen. He does whatever he wants to do, really. And then the final thing, or the final couple of things, is promoting on Spotify. Now they're only interested in brand new releases. So if you put a whole album out at once, imagine you just have 12 songs, you put the whole album out. They will only be interested in kind of one hit with that. So they'll ask you to pick a track that they're prepared to, have listened to and possibly promote if they really like it. Even that's quite a tall order. But they're only going to do it once. So with an album, if you simply just put it out, you only have that one go of getting to Spotify. And then finally, once the album is done, you've got a lovely cover and you've got your tracks in the right order and they're sounding good. By the way, I'm not going to talk today, in fact, probably not ever, about mastering, because that's the dark art of taking your mix and making it into something releasable. I still think it's a very strange dark art, and I sometimes think it's made mystical by the people that carry it out in order to keep it, strange, mysterious, and mystical. Job done, I would say there. So my final thought is, once you've done that, once you've released the album, it's out there, the public are thrilled and excited because they've been desperately waiting for a new album from Simon Jacobs, then what do you do then? Well, I think in a perfect world, you would go and do some gigs or something like that. You would draw attention to yourself in some way. Go and do something live. I would still very much love to do that when the opportunity arises. I'm still thinking of ways of getting out there in front of people. So that remains a real option. But then in truth, actually, what's happened is you've already got a bank of songs ready to go for the next album. And this, for me, is true. I already have kind of a pretty good idea of what will make up, I suppose, the bulk of album 5. I mean, I can hardly believe I'm saying those words, but it is indeed true. I do already have most of album 5, whatever it's going to be called, ready. Maybe I'll just call it 5, as opposed to 30. I've just got a 5 little. Maybe put a picture of me as a 5-year-old. That'd be quite fun, wouldn't it? Don't tell anyone. Don't. I just thought. So album 5, it's mostly in the bank. So the question is then, do I release Me and My Big Mouth, the album, and then literally a month later, I'm onto the new material of album 5? I think the answer is almost yes, but there seems to be the need, and now this might be psychological, and it might just be purely me, because I don't think there's an audience out there, hanging on me every release. But should there be a bit of a gap before you go from, the content of one album into the next album? Probably yes, and in my case, maybe there will be, but actually I'm just excited to kind of get on to the next lot, and on it goes. Now look, isn't there supposed to be a period where you have a difficult second album or a difficult third? It hasn't happened yet. I'm not saying that all my work is wonderful and it's all of a remarkably high standard. I still like to think that I'm learning and progressing and improving, but I've not really had that moment of thinking, I can't, I'm stuck. I can't go any further. I haven't had a block yet. Please, touching wood, thank you. So, and particularly with what's been going on in the last year or so, I've had loads of time to get ahead of myself with the kind of songwriting thing. And once you're ahead of yourself, well, it feels not that difficult to kind of stay ahead of yourself. So by the time you come to releasing album 5 in, say, a year and a half or whatever it's going to take, all of album 6 is already ready. Is that normal? Because I mean, it's quite fun, and there are still quite a lot of songs. I have to say, more than half the songs that don't go anywhere, that never see the light of day, that become in an ever-growing file of rejects, and I mean that with love, of course, to all of them. But anyway, there we go. So look, the making of an album, it's more than just grab your last singles and chuck them out there. You have to think about how it looks, how it sounds, what it kind of marks, and then on you go to the next collection, album, 12 songs, whatever it's going to be, and do it all again and come up with a slightly different theme, and hopefully each album sounds a bit different as well, so that there's a kind of an identity to an album. And even if I'm the only one who notices it and it makes me happy and nobody else gives a fig, and or notices any development at all, doesn't really matter. If people like an individual song, that's also absolutely fine. So, no rules apply in this crazy digital space where people are making it up as they go along and doing what they want. Um, and that seems like a good place to leave it. What we'll do next time is I might introduce you to one or more of the two unreleased songs that are going to be on Me and My Big Mouth, and also do stand by because we are crawling closer to a release also of the next Rothman and Jacobs song, which is going to be called Picture in My Dreams. I'm going to love you and leave you. Next time, I'll try and shave and look presentable. But in the meantime, thank you for watching. Bye bye.